Hello, dear friends. My name is Papa Mayele. Based on a previous story, I think you should all know Mr. Spider's name. Yes, that's right. His name is Ananse. And you also know that Ananse, though just a small spider, was a cunning fellow with a lot of tricks up his sleeve. But have you ever asked yourself why he is bald? Did you know that Mr. Spider used to have a huge afro on his head? What happened then? Well, stay tuned for the story.
One afternoon, after Ananse had had a big and lovely meal, he sat outside his house and dozed off to sleep. You certainly know what they say. A good sleep is the child of a full meal. So Spider lay there snoring peacefully. Unfortunately, his deep sleep was interrupted by his brother-in-law, Nana Petra.
Ananse! Ananse! Wake up! Nana Petra. It's been a while I saw you last. Why don't you come in and allow me to offer you some cola nut?
Ananse offered his visitor food and drinks, but quickly figured out that Nana Petra was not in the mood for festivities, which was very unlike him. So Ananse asked him,
My brother, you don't seem well. Please tell me what the matter is.
Nana Petra paused for some time and sighed.
I'm afraid I have come with some disturbing news, Anansi. Ejamimu, my father, has left us to join the ancestors. What? I don't believe a word you're saying. How can this be? You must surely be joking.
But of course, Nana Petra was not, and Ananse then realized that indeed his father-in-law was no more. So they chatted and reminisced about the life of such a great man, whose life had suddenly been snuffed out. Nana Petra soon got up to take his leave and told Ananse that arrangements had already been made for the funeral to take place in the next 3 days. He also asked Ananse to not only be present, but to also prepare a speech for the day, because not only was he an elder of the family, but he was also a prestigious person in society. Ananse agreed, and when the day arrived, he asked his best friend Dog to accompany him to the occasion. He made sure he looked his best and wore his tall black hat to make himself look more important. Finally, he carried his cane to show his position in society. Dog, on the other hand, came along with his guitar at Ananse's request and played mournful tunes until they arrived at the gathering. As soon as Ananse arrived, the mood and the atmosphere changed. People started whispering and chatting among themselves excitedly. Although it was a funeral, Ananse was a well-known and great personality who knew how to entertain a crowd. So everyone waited expectantly for what was to come. Ananse liked the attention, but knew that he had to keep up appearances. He was offered one of the best seats in the gathering, but kindly declined, putting on a long face and pretending to be very downcast.
Wow, he must really be hurting.
The animals whispered among themselves.
See how humble he is. He has even refused to sit down.
In a little while, Anansi excused himself and so happened to pass by the kitchen. No one was there, so he quietly walked up to the big pots of bubbling soup and peered in to see what was smelling so good. His mouth began to water when he saw that his favorite meal was being prepared. It was none other than beans. His stomach began to growl and his mind started racing. Not only was it disgraceful to put your hands in someone else's pots, but this was a funeral and no one had been served yet. Also, he didn't want to seem greedy, especially because of the entire pretense he had performed earlier. So Ananse removed his tall black hat, spooned a large quantity of beans into it, and put it back on his head. He didn't realize how hot the food was until it touched his head and it made him squint, but he told himself he would be able to handle it and went back to the gathering. As soon as he returned to his seat, he immediately regretted his actions. The master of ceremony announced that now the food will be served. Ananse thought he would say his speech, get it over and done with, and disappear. But that wasn't the case now, was it? The plates of beans began to pour in, and of course, Ananse was one of the first ones offered a huge portion. But he wistfully declined, telling the crowd that he felt in no mood to eat food while his father-in-law lay dead and cold. Couldn't they see that he was in mourning? Everyone wondered at what a humble and caring soul he was. They tried and tried to convince him to have some food.
Please, Anansi, eat something. You have to eat something. You need to get your strength up.
Yes, he is dead and gone, but there's nothing anybody can do about it. Please eat something.
But he flatly refused. So they ate anyway, including his friend Dog, who lapped up his meal with no reservations. Most of the people who came were not relatives. They were only here to extend a hand of support. But as they ate, Ananse's hunger and the pain on his head grew more and more. It seemed like a whole century later until he was finally called up to say his speech. He tried his best to hurry it and then told the crowd that he had to go. Another ceremony needed his attention. But as he was talking, Ananse continually nodded his head. He tried his best not to, but he just couldn't help it. The heat from the beans was just too much. Eventually, people began to notice and asked him,
How? Dear Anansi, sir, why are you nodding your head so much?
He answered,
It's so hot today. And if you felt the heat I was feeling, as well as the pain I was feeling in my heart, you too would nod your head.
Finally, he and his companion Dog were able to leave the meeting. As soon as they left the gathering and were only a few feet away, Ananse could no longer take the pain anymore. It was just getting too much. He finally had no other choice, and with a loud shriek, he removed his tall black hat and all the beans that were in it poured out on the ground. Some people who were behind him gazed at him in amazement, and one said,
This man is very, very foolish.
while another said,
I don't think this is normal. How can a normal person put beans in his hat and cover his head with it?
Dog then said,
Anansi, my dear friend, whatever happened to your beautiful hair?
Ananse touched his head and realized that his beautiful afro had disappeared. The beans had been so hot that they had burnt off all his delicate hair.
And so from that moment onwards, dear friends, Spider and all his offspring have had a bald head.